So your Houston Rockets defeated the Memphis Grizzlies 128-108, a 20-point game that started off hella shaky. I'm not going to hold you. The game started off shaky. First half, the Hornets kind of took over the game, had a pretty big lead, and then the Rockets tightened up, went on a crazy, it was like 35-10 run or something in the third quarter. And not going to get into too many analytics and all this stuff today, just because I think they just played harder. They played harder, and honestly reflected on the defensive side of the ball. It reflected on the rebounding side of the ball, because that was one of the things that they suffered at against the Hornets. And I didn't get a chance to really talk about that Hornets game too much. I did want to point out one thing that I said yesterday on Twitter about that game. One of the adjustments that they made against the Hornets was bringing in Grant Williams, and a lot of people said that he stopped Şengün. He didn't stop Şengün. Like, Şengün, I think, only attempted like 2 or 3 shots with him, and he made one and got fouled on one, and he had the one where, to me, he was fouled on. The real reason, in my opinion, that Grant Williams was able to be effective against Şengün was they put him out on the perimeter when Şengün was on defense, and that pick and pop was a problem because we didn't know whether we want to stop the ball handler or go out to the shooter. So in that indecision, and maybe that wasn't something Ime was expecting, I think they took him out just to give the guys a different look. It didn't end up working, but in this game, it was very effective. One of the reasons, if I'm a team and I would want to play a perimeter player against Alperen Şengün, is because it draws him out the paint. And if he's out the paint, what you're going to lose is rebounding. I think right now Şengün got to be top 3 in the NBA in rebounding. And in the previous game, we got out-rebounded like crazy. I mean, we were just killed on the boards. There was a thing, let me see. So what I said was that the wings and the guards were out-rebounded by 26-7. So in the second half of the game against the Hornets. So our wings and guards, that's everybody that's not our center, only had 7 rebounds in the second half compared to 26 on the Hornet side. So that means LaMelo had, I think he had 5. Trey Mann had like 5. Miles Bridges had a couple. So we just got punished on the glass. And that's, to me, the reason why we end up eventually blowing that lead and losing. Turn to this game. I mean, we out-rebounded the Memphis, I think, almost about 20 rebounds, getting so many second-chance points. And this is where the Rockets have to live. At this point in their development, honestly, we still don't have an offensive identity under Udoka. It's still a lot of fragmentation in the way that they play offense. It seems like guys are just taking turns trying to see what sticks. We have a couple staples, obviously the pick and roll with a ball handler and Şengün, whether it's Dylan, whether it's Fred, whether it's Jalen, or anybody with a ball in Şengün. So we have that. We have the Şengün post up. We have the Jalen isolation drives. And that's pretty much it. You might get an occasional mismatch with Dylan Brooks in the post against a player. And everything else is just random and sporadic. And honestly, we don't have the collective IQ as a team, in my opinion, to run a random and sporadic offense at this moment. So where the Rockets have to live is on getting stops, getting out in transition, and playing off of their defense and their hustle and rebounding. This is what really put us on the map last season, and this is where we got to be able to live. We got to live there. That's what made us a top 10 defense. And I think the first game, the guys had a little bit of trouble kind of ramping up to that level. And it's one thing to be the, Steven Silas Rockets coming into the new year and nobody really expects anything from you, and you get to jump up on a couple good teams because they don't know your style. But now you go from the one that's hunting to being the hunted, right? Teams know the book on the Rockets. They got to film on how Udoka Rockets play. So now coaches are going to counter some of the things we do well. And I think that's where the guys are going to get to have to slow down and really, really understand what teams are trying to do against them. The first game, they looked like they got hit and didn't know how to recover. In this game, you were able to see them tighten the screws on defense. This is what we want to see. This is what the Rockets are going to have to live on until that offensive identity develops, hopefully within the middle of the season at some point. But that is something that I am a bit disappointed in, is the offense. But defensively, I still think they showed it in stretches against the Hornets, but ultimately it was too late. Once they got comfortable, it was a done deal. But this game against Memphis, I mean, some things that stood out to me, the pick and roll defense was hella impressive against a Grizzlies team that I was worried about. With John Morant, the way we held him in check, Amens Thompson defense on him, the ability for Şengün to be able to bother him, to play both the drive and a lot of him, how they played him, whether they were going under, contesting his shots. Ja gonna do what Ja do. I expected a Ja 36, 40-point game, but they held him pretty much in check by playing the pick and roll well. There was a play to start the game where they had whoever was guarding the corner. Actually, once the pick came and Ja got around the screen, instead of the man that's guarding Ja trying to fight under or fight over, the man that was guarding the corner came up and took over the Ja Morant assignment, while whoever Şengün peeled over to the corner to cover him, and then they just had whoever the guard, I forgot it was guard, if it was Fred or somebody else, kind of drop down and take over the center. And these are the things that you're going to have to do to give teams a different look, right? You can't just give them the same thing over and over. You got to use your pieces. I think putting a man on him in the second half was very, very important. But overall, to me, they played, first half not as well, but the second half they tightened the screws, showed you what they could be going forward. Now the key for them is going to be consistency. Can you do this night in, night out on a quarter-to-quarter basis? I think that if they can reach a point where they're playing 75 to 80% of the games at that level, they should be, just by being baseline competent, beat a lot of teams. Like, you can beat a lot of teams just by playing hard. And we were able to do that, secure the home victory, which I think was very, very much needed. Overall, I think pretty much everybody just played hard. I know there was a lot of angst in the fan base over the first game. Like, I will challenge the guy. I will challenge all of you, right? All the fans that are Rockets fans. Don't live in the micro, right? Don't live in the game-to-game thing. I think we've matured enough over these years on this team. Obviously you can fan however you like. I'm not telling you how to fan. But I feel like after all we've seen from how our teams go, teams start off good and crash out, teams start off bad and end up being really, really good, I think they've afforded a little bit of patience. So I'm not going to make any micro judgments on a game-to-game basis, because you just end up looking like a clown, right? One game, oh, yeah, blow up the team, fire the coach. This player sucks, that player sucks. The next game is like, oh, they look pretty good. We're going to do good. We're going to do this. Just be measured. Analyze the game from a basketball standpoint. From a basketball standpoint, the Rockets' offense is concerning, right? We can say that we don't really have a clear identity at this moment, and that may bite us in the butt later on. But overall, it's too early to say what this team is, because none of these games individually mean anything. We're going to have to look at it in the aggregate. So what does the aggregate say about what the Rockets are going to be? To me, you're not going to know. I look at it 5-10 game sample sizes. We'll see once those data points start coming in. What are the best lineups? What are some of the different combinations of players? What are the shot types that the Rockets are good at? I think also the coaching staff needs that information to be able to be more efficient. You can see that the rotations tighten up today. We didn't see a lot of Reed Shepherd as much as we saw in the first game. We didn't see a lot of certain guys as we saw in the first game. They saw some things that worked in the first game that translated over to the second game. Guys were able to make adjustments on some of the things they did wrong. And that's how it's going to be until they get into a groove where the rotations are set. Guys know what their roles are. There's a hierarchy of some sort. And then you can kind of judge your team as what they are. But the micro, angst and doom and gloom every game, it's not worth it, bro. It's going to be a long season if you're going to live like that on the edge. Let's just talk about the basketball of it. Give these guys time to breathe. But overall, I think it's a good game. I think it was a good game, a good bounce back game. I love that they did it out of grit and grind, no pun intended for the Memphis Grizzlies. And I think that's where we're going to have to stay at until we get to the point where we know what our offense is. We have a solid kind of defensive identity, and we kind of have a stable rotation. I'm going to talk about the Spurs game now. So the Spurs coming up, I watched them play against Dallas. They're a better team than they were a year ago. Obviously, you insert Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul. It's that's Chris Paul alone impacts winning on so many levels. Even though they crashed out in the late in the third or mid third quarter against Dallas, what they present to you, they're going to be competent, right? They're going to be competent. They're going to play for the most part, because there's still a little bit of CTE basketball with some of their players. For the most part, they're going to play good fundamental basketball. They're going to move the ball. They're going to cut. And Chris Paul is going to get those guys organized when he's on the court. So this game is going to be tough. It's not going to be an easy game. I think Wemby poses a different matchup, and Şengün goes from guarding one 7'3", 7'2" guy to guarding another guy that's 7'4" the next night. So he got his word cut out for him. But I think it's the same thing as he played with Ide today. You got to attack Wemby. Attack him on the move. Attack him going downhill. Use your strength to be able to knock him off his pivot. Watching him play against Dallas, he's gotten a little bit bigger, but he's still not strong enough to really do any, because he was getting moved off by damn near every player. I still think that ability to attack Wemby straight up is there. I think you can guard him straight up as well, get under him. I'd like to see Dylan Brooks play on him, but the guard play for the Spurs is much, much more improved. But we should beat this team. We should beat this team. We're just a more talented team, I think, and we should be able to attack them in multiple ways. When Wemby is not on the court, they don't have an actual rim protector in there. And most of the time, because he floats around the perimeter and he is kind of playing a little bit of an off-ball kind of center role, he's not like just parked in the paint. There are going to be opportunities for our guards to get in the paint and get some touches there and create chaos on their defense. I think so. So these are things that I'm going to be watching out for. The motion, I'm looking out. They cut on us a lot. That's a team that likes to cut off ball, and we know we struggle against that. Memphis got a lot of open dunks on cuts and different slip screens and stuff that they were doing in this game. So the Spurs are a better version of that. So I'm going to be looking out for that. But as you know, anytime we play these guys, it really doesn't matter who's the good team, who's the bad team. It's going to be a close game. So looking out for how we come out on the second night of a back-to-back, I don't give a damn. I expect us to win. It's too early in the season to use that as an excuse. I expect the Rockets to win. I expect them to attack some of the coverages they have. I expect Alpida to attack Wemby. I expect everybody else to be attacked in the paint. We got to get feet in the paint. Got to attack Chris Paul when he's on ball on defense. He's old, but he's still kind of crafty and wily. So he'll do all his tricks and stuff like that. So we got to attack him. If it's Jalen, if you have the ball, if it's Cam, any of our young guards, when you see CP3, beat him to the corner, get feet in the paint, pass it off, make a play for a teammate. That's what they got to do. They got to get the ball popping. So it'll be a great matchup. It'll be a great matchup. I would be remiss if I didn't shout out Jabari Smith Jr. for bouncing back after a poor performance in this game, right? Jabari is so important to our team when he is active on the glass. When he's not active on the glass, it's hard to really see his impact on the game. The reason being that he doesn't really have any bread and butter to go to on offense. And to me, when his offense isn't clicking and he's not active on the glass, the defense is never just super elite. It's good enough. He gets lost, and he doesn't really validate his spot as a starter when that's not being done. Until he matures in his game over the years, right now, what he has to do is be able to feed off the glass, off of putbacks, off of offensive rebounds, crashing the boards, pushing it, and getting out. Even if he doesn't, I don't know if he hit a three tonight, but his impact was felt. And that's going to be on his activity on the glass. Last year, the same thing. His best games were those games he had 13 rebounds, 14 rebounds. That's his thing. Him and Şengün got to put up at least 30 rebounds between them every night. And if one of them is boxing out, the other guy got to clean it up. And as you know, we have rebounding deficiencies at Dylan's position and at Fred's position. So they have to be that much more locked in. And I think tonight he did a great job of that. You wish he had more of an offensive package to present. But as time goes on, you hope that kind of develops, at least just something that he can go to that isn't just a putback. But right now, the putbacks are needed. It makes a huge difference on a team. Shout out to Tari Eason coming in, looking healthy, looking like his old self a little bit, hit a bunch of big threes, was able to get the ball out in transition, was able to get some defensive stops. He did really, really well tonight. Glad to see him coming back. I think he's going to take time just because the speed and intensity of NBA basketball is hard to match. You can't match that in one-on-one practice with a trainer or trying to simulate it at practice. When you're going against somebody else that wants to take your head off, that's the only way you can see it. So, I don't know if he's going to play tomorrow's game against the Spurs because like Coach said, he's going to be day-to-day. I hope Steven Adams gets some burn. I'd like to see him go against Wemby, but we'll see. But so far, so good, man. Once again, the challenge for the fan base, take a macro approach to the Rockets. Don't get bogged down in the game-to-game minutia. Give it a couple games, draw some conclusions, and then as the games kind of stack up, you'll be able to see a clearer picture, right? So we're not going to be like, oh my God, let's this is it. We're the worst team ever. We're not da-da-da. The next game, we're going to make the playoffs. Like, it just looks silly. It looks silly. Well, to me, it does. So, like I said, everybody for me is getting a fresh slate this year. You're going to have to tell me what they are, right? And I'm giving them at least till the middle of November, the first few weeks of November, maybe 10 games under their belt. That's damn near 1/10 of the season at that point. So that's going to tell me, okay, this is where we're starting with. It's not really about the early games. When you look at how much better they've gotten from the previous season, you want to look at relative to the previous season, where are they now? Because the difference between a team that's played together or a brand new team is not how they show up to start the season. We've had plenty of seasons as Rockets fans when James Harden was here where we came out and we're trash. Like we had, I think the 17-18 team that took the Warriors to 7, they came out on fire. I think we were like 20-something and 7 to start the first half of the year. But most of the time for, James Harden's later tenure, it was digging us out of a hole. We had to turn up after the holidays, and that's when closer to March, they kind of turn up at that point. So we know how this goes. So it's not really for a team, to me, when you look at the difference between a previous season like last year and this year to say how good or bad they've gotten, it's not how well they start off playing per se. It's how fast they get to their peak. And to me, where they're starting out this season is better than they were last season. Last season, we lost to Orlando, and I think we lost to the Spurs, and I forgot who the other team. We started off 0-3, and it was kind of shaky. We didn't develop that chemistry and that identity till November. And then into December when we start seeing, okay, this defense is cooking up some. So let's not get into the minutia of every single game. You're going to draw conclusions from every single game, but aggregate those conclusions into one big conclusion. Give it a 5-game sample size. Give it a 10-game sample size. Then we can talk about big picture things. Yes, we can talk about individual things, guys not playing well, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as like the overreactions, let's chill out, bro. Give these guys some time. Let's see what they are. This season is not going to be decided anytime soon, right? It's not going to be decided anytime soon. Yes, every game is important, but at the same time, chemistry is important. Gelling is important. Learning your roles and hierarchy and understanding where you fit in, understanding what works with certain guys, understanding what rotations are the best, who gets the ball at what time of the game. These things, you gotta revamp them, and every season is a new season because guys come in with different expectations. They come in with different responsibilities. When you add new players with different roles, all of that needs a little time to cook up. But love what I saw tonight. Hopefully we get this dub tomorrow so we can start off 2-1. But the Rockets are still figuring it out, and we're going to be here with you to figure it out with them. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. Keep rocking with the Chop Shop, and we're going to keep dropping that fire.
DJ Candlestick. It's the Chop Not Slap Show.